Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So we are, we tossed this one on because we couldn't find any other place that we would be able to do it. Wanted to make sure that we had a chance to update everybody on the NSBA conference. So I'm assuming we just all brought kind of what was our favorite. Ann and Ann, do you have a certain order you want to go in? Does it make a difference? Mine's quick and brief, so I can look at mine real quick. I will send you all, kind of towards the bottom of the page where it says becoming a PLC board. I will get the presentation and send it to y'all. I could not seem to get it off my tablet, but so I'll send that to you. The pre-conference. Majority of my conference time I spent on building a better board or building board and superintendent relationships, just different things with the board. And then I threw in a few fun ones. The actual presentation you have is from the pre-conference. I thought it might be a little interesting if we all decide to do the self-evaluation. I did mine during the session, and we kind of all talked about it. Each section we talked about. So that may be something that's a little interesting for you to do later and kind of read through. If you look at page 13, one of the things that I thought that was really, I mean, a lot of this is information that we read, that we can read through and it'll be beneficial. But one of the key points that I thought was really interesting on page 13 is when it talked about board ethics. You know, you think of ethics, your ethical standard is your ethical standard. But what they said is, you know, a lot of your ethics is a living document. Because you do, it's not that you change what you believe, but you change how you work with each other. And that was a document that said you really need to make sure that the whole board is on board with it. That they are, this is our standard, this is how we're going to operate, this is what we believe in. Because we all will have somewhat different beliefs, but it's more looking at what are our commonalities and what we can take together and work together. And then if you look on page 19, one of the things that I thought was really interesting was when it talks about evaluations and the importance of, you know, sometimes we do wonder why do we need to bother evaluating ourselves? But it's being honest with ourselves, with where we're at, because we all have our moments of, turdness, and we all have our moments of aha and greatness, and coming together and realizing how we assess ourselves, how we see each other, how we work with each other. And they talked a lot about the importance of assessing themselves, the board assessing themselves and each other and holding each other accountable. And then that goes right into, on page 21, the importance of the superintendent evaluation. And I put that one in there because, well, for several reasons. You know, a lot of people think the superintendent's evaluation, oh, that's just so that we can give him his performance pay or her performance pay. But it really goes far beyond that. It's an opportunity for their growth, but their growth with the board as a team, and you can either have a performance evaluation that fails or a performance evaluation that excels. And the point is to, if you're going to go through it, make it worthwhile, and use it as a tool to help drive your team forward. The one consistent thing in all the presentations I went to with the board and superintendent evaluation or relationships, because I cut the other ones I went to, I really kind of just summarized on the one sheet. It talks a lot about how we need to work as a team, and how we as a not just a governance team, but a leadership team for the district, and with the leaders of the district. I was surprised. The one that I went to was two superintendents just talking to a board, to different board members, and then allowing, it was kind of like an open forum where people were asking questions. And of course, you have the people who obviously are angry with their board or superintendent, and others who are very positive, because it was very mixed. But it really surprised me where they talked about because we've heard it said here before, and whether it's true or not, I can count to majority. Some superintendent used to say I only had to count to 3. And one of these superintendents really went into that, and he talked about how, a superintendent.
Kim, could you say that again? I didn't hear the whole beginning of that part.
It was these two superintendents talking,
Uh-huh.
and they were saying that, the superintendents who operate by, well, I just have to get the majority.
Oh,
They don't
yeah,
work
yeah.
with the whole board. They'll get their way often, but there's a lot of fallout to doing that. And they talked about it causing the division amongst the board members. The board members end up fighting with each other. It talked about the mistrust amongst the members and the superintendent, as well as their leadership team. He talked a lot about creating an atmosphere of insecurity for employees, because some are going to trust the superintendent, some will trust the board or some board members, some won't trust anybody. And so there's just a spiral effect. And I think his whole point to the whole conversation was the importance of working well together with your superintendent as a team. They also went into, part of that teamwork is setting the expectations and holding each other accountable, like holding yourself and holding each other. There was a whole video skit they did where they showed board meetings, where one board member's kind of going after someone who's commenting, and how to handle them. They did a lot of scenarios where you're handling, sometimes you do have to tell each other, where it's not an appropriate topic, or remind each other of the norms. They talked a lot about having our norms posted, that it was really important, and making sure that we're all on board with those norms, even if it meant that we read them periodically to the public so they know what they are. They also stressed the importance of us being willing to have study sessions and executive sessions on topics that may not be an easy conversation. Either we're going to be divided because we won't agree on something, or maybe we're all going to be in agreement, but just giving us giving each other and the superintendent the opportunity to talk through whatever it is. Because even if you're the board member or board members that don't agree with something, having been respected enough to talk through it really makes a difference. And so that was one of the things that they really had stressed. The other one that I kind of flagged out by itself was the Becoming a PLC board, which I'll send you guys the presentation. It was actually really cool. The PLC was an actual class that board members committed to go to, kind of like a seminar, but so we'd have to get information on it if we wanted to do it. And then they scheduled their time to do actual PLCs. They would come in, they would meet, they would do the building. Their superintendent, they relied on him to provide them with reading materials. So they would often, they would all read a book or a different article or things together. And at the next board meeting, someone would report out. And you don't know who, because everybody's name would be in the hat. So somebody would pull their name out. So if you didn't do your reading and you happened to get pulled, yeah, you kind of got caught because you wouldn't be able to report out on it. It was little techniques that they used to keep themselves accountable. One of the older gentlemen, he kind of joked that they did that because of him, because they knew that if he didn't know that he might get called on, he probably wouldn't have done his homework. And so he kind of thought it was funny that he goes, and so I will tell you that I do my homework, because odds are I will get called on. I've been called on 3 times, and we've only had to report out 5. So, he was just kind of unlucky. And then the other one that I attended that I thought was really neat, and I'll give it to whoever Dr. V says it would be appropriate, was the Bach Kids. That's the one where I crashed and burned. But that was, it was, Bach, it's Reeboks. It's by the Reebok company. So it's called Box Kids, and it's, you partner, it's your PTA, PTOs, parents partnering with your school to come in and do a before school or an after school or a lunch activity where they're just getting the kids up and moving, running. It's just, all the games that we played, so we did a kind of a little class. That's where I crashed, but.
We'd have to be careful on the carpet with that, right?
Yes, be careful on carpet and don't be running in boots playing tag because it's not so graceful when you fall. But they also have a component to it that is the teachers do with the students, just kind of to get the kids, when the kids are getting squirrely, getting them moving and getting them up. The whole program is free. We just have to have our own volunteers. So they'll send their information, we just sign up our district. They send, you can either train by video, or if they're able to, they'll send someone here to do a training with whoever wants to. They said generally it's a PTA mom or a PTA dad that will do like the morning or the lunch, and sometimes, just different in the afternoon. And they just partner, they just get the kids moving. So it was a really cool program.
And that's outside the classroom time?
The morning, the afternoon, and the lunch. Yeah, the lunch was like a little 15-minute run and play program. The morning was before school, and then the after school they would stay and do just like a little mini PE with the kids.
Oh, so an actual after school, not
Yeah.
waiting for someone to pick you up after school?
Yeah, no, an actual
Okay.
after school, the kids would stay. A parent or a volunteer would be trained to work with the kids and do these. I gotta admit, they were fun games. A bunch of us old people running around, we were having a blast. You run towards each other, you do jumping jacks, and you're playing with cups, and you're building towers, and they're crashing, and, it was one of my most fun classes.
It'd be interesting to maybe have community education folks find out about that program too, because we already have kids who are enrolled in those after school and before school programs, and they could maybe incorporate some of that additionally into what they already do. That's awesome.
So I'll give it to you guys. Oh, did you pull it up?
Yeah, it's got there.
Yeah,
It's a great website.
the website has everything. You just sign up your school, and it's just a matter of getting the volunteers to do it. That way it's no cost. So those were my primary. There was a lot of other classes I took, but they were kind of boring, more administrative, how to set your bus schedules and.
Well, I guess my question though, it was your first presentation? How was the suggested self-evaluation different from the one we did last week?
Well, there was a lot of different versions. That's the one thing that was common in a lot of these tools. There is no one set one that's the best. What they recommended is that you work with your team to find out what is the best evaluation for your district, what's important to your communities and your parents. They did recommend potentially putting out a survey of, what are your expectations? What do you think the board does? What do you think the board's role is? And then discussing what the public believes and then what's the reality, and then doing it all as a team to come up with that evaluation.
That would be some interesting data to collect,
Yeah, it would probably be hard to-
actually.
It would be. So, but, and it.
No, I mean, I think it would be good for the board to look at, to know what is the public perception, what is employees' perceptions.
And then what's
What do
legal
people,
reality?
right, and then what is it people would like to see us do to improve? And are those things that we could do legally, as you say? I think that would be, interesting. Yeah.
And I also thought with the superintendent evaluation, this would, not like today and not for Dr. V, because he's already on an existing tool, but it may be a good exercise for us that if we're going to change the tool, that we do it before we start a new superintendent on that tool.
So we could align evaluation to strategic plan?
Well, and to working as a team.
Right,
All
well,
of us together and, and making sure that it's not in the silos.
Well, I guess that's the thing with,
Because our evaluation should align with theirs as well.
when I think like with evaluations be self or somebody else's, it's important to have alignment and a minimal amount,
Mhm.
because when you end up with so much data and so many evaluations, your evaluations can start impeding your ability to get your job done. You're just spending all this time evaluating. I mean, it just
Right.
needs to be aligned
it's
and,
kind of like standardized testing, huh?
And gathering all that data and putting it in all those nice little forms to turn in and, yeah. So that was mine, and I'll send you as soon as I can get them out of my tablet. The other links.
Go ahead, Ms. O'Brien.
So I'm going to start with my favorite one, which was students on the school board. And I think that our district is already doing a lot to find out what students want and what their opinions are about what's going in the district. And this just took it to that final step, which I think would be phenomenal for us to do. There are some legalese, obviously, we'd have to maybe run by the lawyer. But in Colorado, there's a school district doing this, and they have a student group where they have two or three students, depending on the enrollment, from each of their high schools that participate on this group. And then the board has one study session per month and then one regular meeting. And every month, 2 students are assigned to that month. So they cover the study session and then the board meeting. At the study session, they're able to find out what is going to be discussed at the next governing board meeting. They then take it back to the meeting with all of the students, report out to those students. Those students have the opportunity to go back to their schools. In our case, it would also be the high schools as well as maybe the regions, to get input on topics that are of interest to the students. Those students then sit at the dais at the governing board meetings and are able to provide input on the topics that are meaningful to them. They do not have an actual vote on the board. They invite the students to attend events that governing board members are invited to. They have their own set of bylaws. In this case, they acknowledged that they weren't actually following the bylaws and how they were picking the students to be on the group. The bylaws said that the student population needed to select those students. The principals were generally doing that, but they would be looking into making sure that they were following their own bylaws. But it was just a really impressive program. They were getting ready to start their 3rd year of having student input at the board level. They get the board report that board members get minus confidential information, but they otherwise get all the information that we get. And I don't know if that would included board updates, but I just liked the idea that, the kids, when we make changes that impact them, they're talking about them anyways, and we might not be getting that feedback. I mean, we may be getting more of it because of student voice and the student superintendent advisory group, but to actually have it come here, I thought was an impressive idea to investigate. I know that the president of ASBA, Julie Bacon, is from Paradise Valley School District, and she also attended that session, and Paradise Valley is looking at implementing this in their school district. So I hope that it's something we can talk about more seriously in the future in considering. And they actually are looking now at a way to give those students school credit in the future in some fashion, aligning it to a curriculum.
Like a Stugo kind of?
Yeah, I got that kind of idea. That it was interesting because there was a student from back east who was there and attending the workshop, and she asked if those students received any kind of scholarship because back, I want to say she was from New York, and the student representatives on her board were each getting a $6,000 scholarship. And so the Colorado COO of this school district asked her to stop talking because there was no money for them to give their students at that money. And so that was an interesting concept, but I did like the idea of them getting credit, and so a lot of interesting topics that came out beyond that, which I'll forward to Dr. Weitenheimer in the future.
Do you remember the name of the district?
Yes, School District 49.
Okay.
And if you Google Colorado School District 49, that actually it comes up. I thought that was an odd name, but it is there, and they are formatted a little bit differently than this. But it does look like they are pre-K to 12. But I was having a hard time really deciphering how many elementaries versus high schools.
Is this the same one that didn't have a superintendent?
They don't have one superintendent. They have the three, and so you've got a COO, a CFO, and a CTO, I think it was. So anyway, so that was one of the reasons for them. It wasn't, they did attribute that it wasn't a big deal to have the students involved because it wasn't just one person at the top of the organization that communicated with the governing board. They already had 3 different leaders who all worked with the governing board. So that was an interesting perspective. And one of the ideas that was interesting to me as well is and how that worked, but a different topic matter than what we were talking about at that particular moment. So that was my very favorite one that I attended. The other one, and I'm hesitant to bring it up because I don't want Jim Miglerino to hate me forever.
You love us, don't you, Jim?
Okay,
you're safe.
But there is a company who has produced it's for actually Colorado State, their budget, and it's a budget tool that allows citizens to go on and look at, in a very simplified format, the state budget and look at what it's spent on, and they can provide input on how they think the money should be spent. So if they want less money in healthcare and more money in public safety or more money in education, the tool actually tells you when you're on budget, when you have a surplus, if you have a deficit. It tells you you're not allowed to submit a deficit budget. You actually have to either balance it or provide with a surplus. And it allows you actually to not just work on the expense part, but it also allows you to look at the income part as well. So what are, personal income taxes, what are corporate income taxes, as well as the different revenues. And given the complexity of school finance in Arizona, as it is, I'm sure, everywhere, it seemed like an interesting concept to maybe help our constituents provide feedback in a way other than actually having to attend a meeting or sit down and write an email and try to work through it. I don't know how much that costs, because it is a company who helps you to do that, but it was a very interesting website, and I will share the website with you all. I'll email that out, because originally I had thought it was for their school budget and found out it was actually the state budget. And that actually came out of a workshop that was talking about communicating with your stakeholders, and how important that text is today, that emails get read so infrequently, but texts are read and opened like 80% of the time. So it's an interesting phenomenon to change how we are communicating with some of our stakeholders and to be in constant communication with them. And then the 2 other workshops, and I think they kind of went in together, which was by the president of, I believe he was the president of Apple, and the importance of technology and how they want to be a positive disruption in the education environment. And we are already working with them in our one-to-one devices, but the stress on the importance of creating problem solvers. I think it's safe to say that when most of us sitting at this dais went to school, information was a scarcity. And so we were all striving to learn the information, and information is no longer a scarcity.
I don't know, Miss O'Brien. I had a full set of Britannica with a giant book in the back that you pulled out with the maps. Just saying.
Yes. So, we're already working with them, but I look forward to us continuing to stretch that envelope in getting our teachers to teach in a different way, so that we are, doing the problem solving. They talked about a math teacher who, instead of signing, 30 problems, she assigns that you do one problem, but you have to record yourself solving the problem. There's an app, so they write out the problem and they talk about it while they're doing it, and it's uploaded so that their classmates can see that, and then they must then go look at 2 other students' problems and evaluate them, and so now the teacher's not grading 30 times, so 900 problems. In addition, the teacher was very quickly able to find why one girl kept making the same mistake. And because she could hear how they were solving the problem, things were clicking. And kids who were, and this was in an algebra class where the kids had to repeat it. So what's the word I'm looking for? Like a recovery class. So these were kids who were struggling, and they all started passing, and they weren't wasting, I hate to say wasting their time, but they weren't spending hours doing 30 problems and getting frustrated because they couldn't do them. They only had to do a couple, and it just changed all of these kids. And this was a teacher who had been teaching for 25 years, but that one thing made a significant difference. So I applaud our district, because I think we're out there, but I hope we will continue to push that envelope and look at helping our teachers to find those different ways to make our kiddos problem solvers, because I can tell you I spent all day wishing that I had talked to people who were problem solvers instead of people who just wanted to check the box and say they had done it. So thank you.
That was awesome. Well, I am going down a road that is called Ombudsman. So it was interesting to me because in our district, so large, you hear different stories from different people. No one's listening to me, blah, blah, blah. Very important blah, blah, blahs. So we then have Raquel, and that, I believe her space is more for breaking some kind of a rule, not something as simple as not following a process. So I'm just going, I didn't copy this for you, but I will. So the important parts of an ombudsman is, there's 3 parts. Independence, which is to be credible, effective. The office of the ombuds is independent in structure, function, and appearance. Part of the rationale for establishing and supporting an ombudsman is to counter constituents' fears of retaliation, bringing forward issues. Impartiality, again, it's crucial. Independence. Genuine impartiality is possible. Confidentiality, that this will stay within that office, and it will promote the disclosures from people that are normally reluctant. So we've had situations in our district where it seems as though things have been festering for years, and then they grow and they grow, and you ask someone if they call you, you say, well, have you called so-and-so? Oh, can't do that. Well, have you talked to so-and-so? Can't do that. Well, I'd like to believe that you really could, and I think some people are just not it's just not in them to do that, but it's a perception. So with a district ombudsman, it is not, it would, I think, alleviate fears of employees. It would totally open up channels of communication, and it would give our administrators the opportunity to see what these, not the people in the specific situations, but to see what these categories are, so we could fix these problems. And the more trust that we build, the more people will talk, because if you don't know that you have the problem, you certainly can't fix it. So we've heard for years, you don't listen to us. I have a classroom with 10 IEPs and 20 kids. Well, do we listen? I don't know. I think we do, but I'm not sure how we listen. So if that was viewed as a complaint, and someone doesn't come up and say it and says, well, I've said it, for a million years and no one listens to me. If you had an ombudsman that these people could go to and say, listen, I have a class of blah, 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 and I have this, what should I do? And this person would say, well, the process is, let me look at it. So it's a good way to see how you would affect change in a process if a process was needed, how to truly communicate what the processes actually are, because we have 4,000 employees, and I don't think all of them know what our processes are. Within their own departments even, I don't think sometimes people know what goes on. And it could also be expanded to include parents. Again, it is not anything that would be for someone that was doing something illegal. It would just be an informal way to say, hey, I'm in a classroom, I got 36 kids, I don't know what's up with that. I don't know what to say. If I say something to so-and-so, she's just gonna give me, 10 more kids. So it would be a safe way to air what you perceive as a problem and get an answer. There are a lot of school districts that are using them, and also for levels lower than what you would go for a grievance. And since our two associations for the certified and the classified do not have a majority of employees that belong to either of those associations, they are not represented for small things, even small grievances or things that you want to have as a pre-grievance. So this would also be a way for the majority of employees to have a way to talk about something that they're having an issue with. Just something to think about as we move forward, and we want to foster that culture of trust and have people believe that, if they say something, they're heard, not guaranteeing someone that you're going to hear what you want to hear when you've said what you've said, but at least that you have a very safe, open place to air a problem that you have, I think might be something to look into.
Just where you were talking about the independence, who does that person report to? The superintendent, the board? Is it kind of like an internal auditor?
On the different plans, I mean, here, which is why I didn't make a copy for everyone. It's a huge book, but there are different plans. Some of them report to the superintendent. Some of them, which I would not ever, I don't think I'd ever be in favor of someone reporting to the board. I don't want anyone to report to us. But in some situations, they do report to someone in human resources that has nothing, you've got to read the plans because they all have specific rules on what, can be said and not said. But this, again, is not for a grievance of official capacity. So if someone was a teacher was belittling someone, but not to the point of where it was harassment, so they could not grieve if they were belittling each other. So you it wouldn't be a hostile work environment, but it would be so uncomfortable. So this would be a person that you could go to and get some kind of relief.
Problem solving before it ever gets to being a.
Correct. It's a very preventative, caring way to handle things before they become problems. And again, what the different districts that are doing it have found is that their culture in their district, having the ombudsman, even though people had their eyes up, like, ooh, what's this, and why are we doing that? And mostly the people that had the eyes up were the administrators, was that this is a good thing. And they found that the formal grievances and problems of those sorts dwindled. Not eradicated, but got a lot smaller, so. And it also saved their board members from getting those phone calls that you really can't do anything about. And you have that feeling like, oh, I don't want to stick my nose in that, but I'll call someone. So now they do have someone that listens to them. And this is from small districts to large districts, so. So I have the information that I'll be more than happy to give to Ms. Redding. So that was my big takeaway. Most of the sessions I went to were doing things that we were already doing. And I thought that this ombudsman was something that was a little bit different, but certainly that would be in our good something good for us to do.
I will say that is one thing that I did think that was neat. Wherever we do have issues, we were able to identify. But I think in every single class, I was able to find one or two or three or sometimes more things that we're already doing that people are just talking about how cool that is. We should try this. And it is neat to see that districts will always have their issues, but there is a lot of things we are doing right. And we need to celebrate the things we're doing right so that we can enhance them rather than focus on the negative. Any other takeaways? No? Okay. Any questions from Darcy, Jenny?
Thank you for sharing.
I think,
Oh, sorry.
to consider this idea, I think we'd have to have another study session just on this, because you have a whole book there, so it's not that I'm disinterested, but
Oh, no, we would absolutely have to have another study session. We'd have to decide whether our new superintendent would be interested in this, if they had already worked with it. And then if we were to move forward from there, there's a lot of stakeholders that we would want to talk to see if it's something that they would feel would be worthwhile. So it was just very interesting to me because I thought that as we move forward, we are such a forward-looking district, and we do like to be preventative with issues and concentrate our time on the students, that this would be something that would help us accomplish that.
I have a question. That's a lot of information, but can it be scanned in and maybe just loaded into Vibe for us to read? Is that?
Well, or I wonder if we couldn't actually go to their site and get it electronic so that we can read it. Save somebody the time of scanning.
Yeah,
and just looking.
possibly. Yeah, that would be
Maybe.
great. So, and I'll share some notes out too. So.
We have a resource section on Vibe, and we can create one from this conference, and we can just drop any of the information in there. Then you have access to it anytime you want it.
Thank you.
All right. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
5 minutes.
You're early. Yay, we have 5 minutes. If you got to run.